Welcome to chapter 35 of the book of 2nd Chronicles. We continue with the life of Josiah, the righteous king of Israel. It begins, and Josiah observed the Passover. Now, he was a young man in his 20s probably here. He observed the Passover in Jerusalem to the Lord his God, the Fasek, they call it the Pasek, I think, today in Hebrew, but this was a translation a couple hundred years before Christ, and they used the Phi, this letter right here. If it was Pasek, as it is pronounced today, they would have used the P, which looks like our pi, the pi in mathematics, but they didn't. They used the Phi, Fa sound, the Fasek. How the Hebrew was pronounced back in those days, no one knows, because the Hebrew alphabet didn't have vowels, no A, E, I, O, U, so it would just be let's say if it was if the Greek here was actually Hebrew, it would be the Phi, the Sigma, and the Kappa. You would know it was Fisek, Fasok, all kinds of possibilities there. But we have the additional witness of the Septuagint, the Greek Old Testament, Fasek, the Passover. The word Passover was first used by Tyndall in his translation, and so it's a fairly late term English word for this here Greek word. And so anyway, he observed this, we'll call it the Passover, and he sacrificed the Passover on the 14th of the first month, and he stationed the priests at their watches and strengthened them for the works of the house of the Lord. The house of the Lord, we'll go down and we'll see it here. Got the wrong thing. There it is. This is a diagram of what the temple might have looked like. Nobody really knows exactly. So the sacrifices and so forth, and then the Holy of Holies is up in here. But the priests were at their watches, and the priests were sons of Aaron. They were Levites. So Levites were people from the tribe of Levi, and they were to do the things of God, special people, special tribe, but not all of them were priests. Only the sons of Aaron, brother of Moses, were the priests. Kohath, Merari, and Gershom were the three sons, and so the priesthood came from those three men. Now, the priests were the only ones that could sacrifice the animals, but the Levites could come in and do other things around the temple area there, as we'll see. But anyway, he stationed them for the works of the house, and he spoke to the Levites. Now I see here he's bringing in the Levites, that they don't necessarily have to be of the sons of Aaron. He spoke to the Levites, to the mighty ones in all Israel, to sanctify themselves to the Lord, and to put the Holy Ark in the house of the Lord. Now, this is unusual to me, because you would think that the Holy Ark would be in the Holy of Holies, where it belongs. So it sounds like it wasn't. And so it's a possibility that Amon, Josiah's father, had taken the ark out and put it someplace else and put these idols in the Holy of Holies. And anyway, so Josiah has them bring the ark back, and they put the Holy Ark in the house which Solomon, son of David, the king of Israel, built, which we just showed you. And Josiah the king said, "Well, it is not for you to lift anything upon your shoulders. Now, the Levites were not allowed to lift the things of the tabernacle, and I'm not exactly sure what they were able or not able to do with the temple, but apparently Josiah is going along with the rules and the law of the temple area, which Moses had. He didn't have anything about the temple. Now then, you officiate to the Lord your God and to his people. And the exclamation, imperative, do this. And be prepared according to the houses of your families and according to your daily rotations, according to the writing of David, king of Israel, and by the hand of Solomon, his son. So all of these were written earlier in the book of Chronicles on the priesthood and who was who and regulations and the watches, the different watches of the house. Later, Zacharias and Elizabeth, Zacharias a priest, and he's of the sons of Aaron. He goes into the Holy of Holies and sees the angel. He was of the watch of Abiah, as I remember. And then he continues, and stand in the house according to the divisions of the houses of your families, of your brothers, the sons of the people, and the portion of the house of the family to the Levites. So here's all the Levites to come and to do the work that they are to do, the divisions. Now, this would be somewhat like if today, here in the United States, or not today, let's say 200 years from now, if Congress never met, and for 200 years and the Congress building was all torn up and falling apart, and all of a sudden there was a ruler that decided that, well, he heard what it was like at the beginning of the United States and wanted to reinstitute all of the Congress, the Senate and the House of Representatives, rebuild the building, and then he'd have to go back and find a constitution. Let's say somebody brought him a constitution. So he realized what the Constitution said, even though he may not have all of the latest amendments and so forth. This is sort of where Josiah was at. And then he says, and sacrifice the Passover and prepare the holy things for your brothers to observe according to the word of the Lord by the hand of Moses. Now the sacrifices were by the, like I mentioned, the sons of Aaron. And Josiah dedicated for the sons of the people sheep, lambs, and kids from the sons, males of the goats, basically, all for the Passover, to everyone being found, in number 30,000, and 3,000 calves. These were of the substance of the king. So the king had his own flocks and herds, and he is giving a number of them for this Passover. And his rulers dedicated to the people and to the priests and to the Levites. And it says in 1 Chronicles 15:4, David gathered the sons of Aaron and the Levites. So this there it shows in 1 Chronicles 15:4 that there was a separation. You can go back and read all about this in the Old Testament. And Hilkiah and Zechariah, let me give the Greek words, Helkias and Zacharias and Eiel, the rulers, Archontessa Iku Tutheu, gave to the Erevsin, the priests, for the Passover, sheeps and lambs and kids, 2,600, and 300 calves. So now we have other people, rulers, giving animals for the sacrifices. And Honanias, and Sameas, and Nathanael, his brother, and Asavias, and Eiel, and Eozavad, rulers of the Levites, dedicated for the Levites for the Passover, 5,000 sheep and 500 calves. So the Levites were providing the animals for this Passover. And the ministration was set up, and the priests stood at their station, the sacrifice, and the Levites in their divisions, according to the commandment of the king. So everybody was getting ready to do his job, his purpose for the Passover. The Levites guarding the gates and so forth, and we'll find out more here. And they sacrificed the Passover. And the priests poured the blood from out of their hand, and the Levites flayed. So here the priests were the ones that were actually doing the sacrificing, and the Levites flayed. Now, I'm not sure if that's before or, well, must have been afterwards, because they were to burn the whole animal, even with the inside, the entrails together. And they prepared the whole burnt offering to deliver to them, that should be to them, just to them, according to the division, according to the houses of the families, to the sons of the people, to offer to the Lord, as it is written in the book of Moses. And so it was into the morning. So they're sacrificing these animals and burning them, cooking them, and then flaying them and dividing the meat for the people to be eaten all that day, not to leave anything over. And they roasted the Passover in fire according to the ordinance. Now the slaying of the animals, they were killed, so that the Levites apparently were doing that. And the holy pieces they boiled in the brass cauldrons and in the kettles. Now, not exactly what he's referring to here, because they roasted the whole lamb, but holy pieces they boiled. I'm not sure. It wasn't the entrails. They cooked that all together. And the way prospered, and they ran it to all the sons of the people. So this was all in Jerusalem. That's where the Passover was to be celebrated. And this is where in the New Testament, where I believe I'm not sure if Mary and Joseph, if they went to Jerusalem they went to Bethlehem for the census, but I believe they went for the Passover when he was 12 years old. I believe that was for the Passover. And after this they prepared for themselves and for the priests, the sons of Aaron, in offering of the whole burnt offerings and of the fat until night. So they were doing this all this daytime. And the Levites prepared for themselves and for their brothers, the sons of Aaron. So they did their job, the Levites. And the psalm singers, the sons of Asaph, were at their station according to the commands of David. So the people were singing these psalms. Now the psalm singers, I believe, were just of the Levites. Asaph and Heman, and Jeduthun of the prophets of the king. And the rulers and the gatekeepers, and they were the Levites, gate by gate. So they were stationed at the gates. And it was not for them to move from their ministration, for their brothers, the Levites, prepared for them. So the gatekeepers stayed, and their food was brought to them. I guess that's what he's talking about. And all the ministration of the Lord was set up in that day to observe the Passover, and to offer the whole burnt offerings upon the altar of the Lord, according to the command of King Josiah. And the sons of Israel, being found present, observed the Passover from that time, and the holiday of the unleavened breads, for 7 days. So they were to take all the leaven out of the houses, cleanse the house of the leavens, and then the Feast of Unleavened Breads, and after that 50 days in Pentecost. And there was not a Passover like unto it in Israel from the days of Samuel the prophet. For all kings of Israel did not do the Passover which Josiah did. Wow, not even David or Abraham or Saul. And the priests and the Levites, and all Judah and Israel being found, and the ones dwelling in Jerusalem, to the Lord. So this was the greatest Passover. Now, I don't know if there was any better after that. Probably not to this day. Today, they don't have the Fasek because there's no temple, there's no sacrificing the animals. Instead, they have what's called Passover Seders, which is developed much later. And I'm not going to go into what the Seders were. You can go on Wikipedia and find out about the Jewish Seders, which are more of a semi-spiritual Passover because they can't do the actual things of the Passover because they don't have the temple in Jerusalem yet. And then it continues, in the 18th year of the kingdom of Josiah, so 26 years old, this Passover was observed because he was 8 years old when he took over. In all these things which Josiah prepared for the house, and after all these things which Josiah prepared for the house, Pharaoh Necho, king of Egypt, ascended up against the king of the Assyrians at the river Euphrates to wage war against him at Carchemish. You can go to Wiki. There's a big article on Carchemish and then the Battle of Carchemish here. Carchemish was up north, right on the border between today, which is Syria and Turkey, probably where the Kurds are, where there's a battle brewing right now. Turkey wants to come down and invade, get rid of a lot of the Kurds that are close to the border because they want their own nation. So the Turks are coming down. Carchemish itself, the city, is now in Turkey, and it's on the west side of the Euphrates River up there. And this battle occurred in 605 BC. And this area had an archaeological expedition with T.E. Lawrence. That was the Lawrence of Arabia who was made famous in the movie Lawrence of Arabia. And Leonard Woolley in 1912 to 1914, they excavated the site of Carchemish. But the battle went on, and Pharaoh Necho went up to fight the Assyrians, and on the way north, when he got into the northern part of Israel, Josiah came against him at Megiddo, which we'll go into here in next verse or so. But Josiah was defeated and wounded, went back to Jerusalem, and then Necho went ahead further north, all the way up then to Carchemish, all the way through Syria, and met Nebuchadnezzar, who came up from Babylon with some of the Medes and the Scythians, and the battle waged. Nebuchadnezzar defeated the Egyptians and the Assyrians, who had made their capital at Carchemish after being expelled from between the Tigris and Euphrates in the northern part of Iraq. So the Assyrians were being pushed out, and now, after this defeat, the Syrians were no more. The end of the Assyrians. Egypt was down in Egypt. The army went back, and they didn't go out to wage war again like they did. That was basically the end of Egyptian power trying to build an empire and going out of Egypt. It just stayed in its own territory. And anyway, the Bible says, and Josiah, King Josiah, went to meet against him, Pharaoh Necho. And Pharaoh Necho sent to him, Josiah, messengers, angelus, an angel. See, as an angel, it's the same word, but you wouldn't call them angels, because angels, whenever I use angel, it's something divine, from something from the divinity, or could be an angel of Satan, also a messenger of Satan, but it's a messenger for a human being. So Necho sent to Josiah messengers saying, well, what is it to me and you, O king of Judah? I come not against you today to make war, but only against the place of my war. And God told me to hasten. And you take heed of the God with me, lest he ruin you. He doesn't mention the word Jehovah, but Necho is eventually defeated. So if God had him go up there to be defeated, but yet he's claiming that God told him to do this, that he shouldn't have come, that Josiah shouldn't have come against Necho, because it says down here, and Josiah did not turn his face from him, but he fortified himself to wage war against him. And he hearkened not concerning the words of Pharaoh Necho from out of the mouth of God. Well, that's interesting because it doesn't really say that as far as when Necho doesn't claim to be. It doesn't say the mouth of Jehovah either, the mouth of God. So I guess the lesson to be learned here is basically we need to seek God's guidance. And if we sought his guidance, hopefully he would give us the guidance and we would know what we should or we shouldn't do. And maybe Josiah didn't seek the Lord, just went up willy-nilly because he felt like it, and politics took hold, which I can understand. And so it says that he came to wage war in the plain of Megiddo. This Megiddo was in northern Israel. And this battle of Megiddo is where Josiah, it says, the bowman shot unto King Josiah. And the king said to his servants, lead me out, for I am in pain exceedingly. So this is also called Armageddon in the book of Revelations, 16th chapter, 16th verse, where it says, and he, it doesn't say really who the he is, but I would assume it was God, gathered them together unto the place being called in Hebrew Armageddon. And the Har means a mountain or the hills of Megiddo. And that would have been the forces of the dragon, Satan. And you can go into, read that in Revelation 16:16. And verse 24, and his servants led him from the chariot and hauled him upon the second chariot, the Teruon. You can add that to your English derivatives book, Deuteronomy, the second Deuteronomy, the second law. It's a derivative, which was his. And they led him, that is a chariot, and they led him to Jerusalem, and he died and was entombed with his fathers. Now, it doesn't say how long he was in Jerusalem, and it might have been quite a while, but anyway, he was entombed with his fathers. And all Judah and Jerusalem mourned over Josiah. And now it mentions the first place for this Jeremiah the prophet. And Jeremiah lamented over Josiah. And all the rulers and the ones in control spoke a lamentation over Josiah, spoken until today. And they appointed it for an order unto Israel. And behold, it is written in the Lamentations. After the book of Jeremiah, we'll go into the Lamentations and see if we can find that. And the rest of the words of Josiah and his hope were being written in the law of the Lord. In his words, the first a proton comes from that, and the last eschatology, a study of the last days, and theology. Behold, they are written upon the scroll of the kings of Israel and Judah. So the end of Josiah, and the next king. What is the next king? I can't think of who it is. Manasseh was the father. Well, anyway, the next chapter, chapter 36, will go into his son, the next king, and find out. Basically, the kings afterwards are, I believe, they're pretty much all the evil, doing evil things. There's only like 39 years before the death of Josiah until the end of Israel. And then Jeremiah lives during that period of time. Hope you'll join us in the next chapter, and God bless.